Hey everybody, it's me, Katie, from Hair's the Thing, and from YouTube at Bobby Hair Studio. I'm the stylist behind the chair and all those videos that you see on my YouTube channel. And I also have a podcast now called Hair's the Thing, and you can find it on Spotify. So today I'm going to be doing 2 Reddit readings, and I'm also going to be going over my number one piece of advice for any hairdresser to build your skill set completely just by using this one specific tool that I came up with. So, if you want to hear that, then stick around. All right, let's get started. We are going to start with our first Reddit story today called Am I the Asshole for Forcing My Stepdaughter to Cut Her Hair? I, 31, met my husband, 34, 8 years ago, and we've been married for 6. He has an 11-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. I work from home, so I mainly end up taking care of her. I have since she was young. We have a generally good relationship, and she stays at her mother's most weekends. She has incredibly long, blonde, wavy hair just past her bottom, and it's a nightmare to take care of. It frequently tangles, and she always needs help brushing and styling it before school. I'm not a morning person, and I do not like having to wake up early to do a kid's hair. It's expensive to maintain as she requires more products. She insists on using hair oils, which can cost around $11 and only last a few weeks. She also insists she has to use curly hair shampoo instead of regular shampoo and conditioner, which is often over $10 per bottle. She goes through it at a fast rate. She won't use a regular brush on it as she insists it breaks her hair and hurts, so she uses a wide tooth comb which takes a long time to brush when she could be doing other more productive things such as homework or helping me with chores. I've decided she has become obsessed with her hair and I do not want her to become vain. So I decided it needs to be cut. I don't see it as a big deal as I've always had shoulder length hair and my hair does not grow very fast and I get frequent trims. It's a lot more practical. I took her to the hairdressers as normal. In the car on the way down, she said she wants to make sure the hairdresser doesn't cut too much. I politely explained that I would like to cut her hair to her shoulder length as it's become a burden. At first, she thought I was joking, but then she realized as she started to cry. When we got to the salon, the hairdresser was reluctant to cut her hair due to the tears, but I explained the trouble we had maintaining it and assured cutting it would be the best for her. In the end, the stylist agreed to cut her hair. The stylist braided her hair and then cut it. She kept it. Her hair was now just past shoulder length and looked a lot darker. The car journey home was silent. I offered her McDonald's, but she refused. She went straight to her room when we got back. My husband went up to see her when we got home and apparently found her on her bed sobbing, holding her old hair. My husband immediately called her mother to come home and collect her, and as soon as my stepdaughter was out the door, he started yelling. Her mother also came in and gave me a mouthful. I explained my reasoning, but my husband wouldn't budge. He said if I had an issue, that he would have done her hair in the mornings, and he didn't mind paying for the products. He was so furious, and he said he no longer trusts me around his daughter, and doesn't know if he can be with a woman who he doesn't trust with her. This broke my heart. I didn't mean her any harm. I was so tired and trying to reduce stress. I've always been the one to raise her and her brother, and I'm just exhausted. Am I the asshole? Man, okay. Number one, if I'm the hairdresser here and a child sits in my chair and she's sobbing and, her guardian is saying we need to cut off all that length and the child clearly doesn't want to cut off all that length, I tell them no. And we're not cutting that length off. I just straight up tell them no. And if the child says, I just want to cut, let's just say down to here, and the mother or guardian says, I want to here, then I ask the child, what would be a good compromise for you? And if we can't come to a compromise, we do not do the haircut, point blank. I've had it quite a few times where there's been a disagreement between both parties, and there's almost always something that you can do to find a healthy balance between the two. And there will almost always be a compromising length that everybody can come together on. But in this case, this was ridiculous. Hair down to her bottom being cut to her shoulders. And I'm just going to talk about those products for a second. She insists on using hair oils, which can cost around $11. And he uses a shampoo and conditioner, which costs $10 per bottle. Girl, this child knows hair care better than you. $11 for a hair oil is not much. It's just not much. And $10 for a shampoo and conditioner is also not much. Now, I'm not trying to price shame anybody, but when you have very long hair like this child does, you will need more moisture for it because it's older hair that's grown down a certain length and it needs more moisture, which this child obviously has done a little bit of research. She knows she needs an oil. She knows she needs curly shampoo because of her waves in her hair. She's right. And the dad said he has no problem paying that. So what's the difference between these products that you were getting before? It's $6 for a shampoo and $8 for a hair oil. You're just spending a few more dollars. And if the dad has no problem with it, then don't have a problem with it. Also, if she's talking about getting up early in the morning to do this girl's hair, this girl's 11 and obviously has, like, from what I'm seeing in this post here, this child has some knowledge of hair care and wants to take care of her own hair. She also uses a special comb for it. I'm sure you don't have to be getting up early to do this girl's hair since she's 11. What I'm seeing it as is probably a control thing, and she gets up early to probably like force her hair into a ponytail or like braid it or put it back in a way. But this little girl loves her hair, and I would put money on the fact that this little girl is probably happy to do her own hair every morning. But this stepmother obviously just has a power problem and has a control problem and wants to be the one to control this. It also sounds like a jealousy problem to me. That's just something that I see as a hairdresser. I would flat out refuse to do that cut if they couldn't find a compromise between the lengths. Oftentimes, again, like I was saying earlier, there's going to be a length that they're both comfortable with. And I always stick on the side of the person who's having to wear the hair rather than the parent because, number one, I'm not going to traumatize somebody. I'm not going to be in charge of that. And number two, when it comes down to hair color work and cost, I will stick with the side of the person who's paying for the service. But when it comes to length, that's something that people are a lot more emotionally attached to. So if a child is coming in and getting some highlights and the mom says we can only afford a half head and we're not going to go full platinum blonde because we can't afford that, then I'll say, all right, sounds good. What do you think of these styles? And I'll offer a compromise between what the price point could be and what we can do with that price point to the child. Maybe there's a few more options the child hasn't looked at, and maybe they're going to like maybe a bolder money piece, and that gives them the blonde they want in front. Either way, when it comes to like the cost of the service, I will not really take the side of, but I will kind of work with who's paying for the service and say, all right, well, this is your budget. These are our options, and have a conversation with the person getting their hair done and the person who's paying for the hair to get done. And if there can't, again, be a compromise, we're not doing the appointment. But when it comes to length, I'm always siding with the person who's in the chair specifically. Let's read the comments. The most highlighted comment votes, "You're the asshole." She says, "How dare you cut her hair and take away her autonomy just because you have decided she is vain." Oh, exactly. What the absolute hell? I'm seriously at a loss for words that you even have to ask whether this is not an asshole thing to do. Shame on you. Seriously. I think that this person is totally right because I don't think the girl was vain for loving her hair and wanting to take care of it. I just think that she realizes she has beautiful hair and wants to take care of it. I think that this girl is just a normal little girl. My gosh. Now for the second Am I the Asshole post on Reddit. Am I the asshole for refusing to dye my daughter's hair back because her school complained? My daughter, 15 female, dyed her hair dark reddish brown for her birthday. I didn't let her dye her hair in middle school, but I said she could in high school. The school has a dress code for hair that is specified to natural hair colors only, which I took to meaning browns, blondes, reds, black, etc. Basically a natural tone. Her natural hair is black, but I don't think that it's much of a change, and the hairdresser that did the bleaching on her hair said that it was not light enough to cause significant damage. But then one of the teachers in the beginning of October last year began complaining to me that during parent-teacher meetings that her hair didn't meet dress code. I said her hair color grew out of people's heads, so why was it out of dress code? She told me it was clearly not her natural color, and I shot back tons of her students that I saw that evening that had blonde hair and highlights when they clearly were naturally brunettes. She claimed they looked like they could be blonde, but my daughter's hair was supposed to be black. My daughter is Asian, so it's pretty racist to say that she can't dye her hair, and I brought it up with the principal, but he agreed with her, saying it was against dress code. But I saw tons of white kids in the class with obviously brown hair that had dyed it blonde and even red, but no one said anything. They want me to darken her hair again so it looks natural. This went on to the end of the school year. I contacted the superintendent several times, but she never got back to me. It's almost the start of school again, and I get an email from the principal reminding me that my daughter is only allowed black hair. She still has her reddish-brown hair and doesn't want to dye it back. But I've tried to fight it, and the last thing to do is barge into the superintendent's office and demand she get involved. It's a racist school, straight up. Like, I would just take my kid out of that school because this is a ridiculous thing for them to be going over. If the daughter had dyed her hair like emerald green or dark purple or like deep blue, that's not a natural color. But going reddish brown, that is one of the most natural colors. Like, red is in everybody's hair, and brown is a color that is widely seen everywhere. Like, I don't see how this could not be about race, because they were saying how all these like white children who have blonde in their hair, they look like they could be blonde. She's saying that this Asian girl looks like she couldn't naturally have brown hair. There are Asians with naturally brown hair. This is so stupid. I think that these teachers are just racist, and they're basically just trying to point her out and say, no, we want her to have black hair. We want all of our Asian students to have black hair. I think that's over the top. My gosh. So somebody commented here, do you live in the USA? Go talk to the ACLU about your daughter's rights being infringed upon because she's Asian. Somebody here also said, agreed, this sounds like the rule is basically that you must have a hair color consistent with your racial profile, which is obviously not okay. Somebody commented, wait till they see that Asians can naturally have wavy or curly hair. It would blow their minds. It's true. I have some Asian clients who have naturally curly hair, and it's so beautiful and gorgeous. And just because it doesn't fit the stereotypical profile that a lot of people have in their mind for Asian hair doesn't mean that it's not natural or beautiful. So overall, everybody has pretty much voted this person as not the asshole. They're all giving her some really good advice on how to word things when she discusses things with the superintendent. And I think that things are going to get fixed here. I hope so. And if not, then she should leave the school and go to another one. Right, so that was it for our Reddit portion today. I want to know what you guys thought about both of these stories today. Is the first step parent the asshole for forcing their daughter to get a haircut? And what would you do if you were in that situation as well as a step parent? Have you ever had a fight with one of the children that you're raising about their hair? Can you tell us a little bit about that in the comments below? And then also the second one, is she the asshole for refusing to dye her daughter's hair black because of the school's rules? So I'd like to hear you guys sound off about those two stories in the comments below, and let me know what you think. Now we're on to what I like to call is my number one tool for all hairdressers to just get better at hairdressing. It's something that improves your awareness, it's something that improves your self-critiquing, it's something that improves your skills overall, and it's something that helps with your memory. Let's be honest, all of us need memory help, especially me because I have a terrible memory. I think you guys know what's coming. If you've been watching my YouTube videos, you know exactly what's coming. It's called 2 Stars and a Wish. 2 Stars and a Wish is my favorite self-critiquing tool. It's what I use with every single client, and I try to use it on as many of my YouTube videos as possible. Sometimes I forget while I'm doing my edits, but I'm going to go into a little bit of a deeper dive onto why I do this, how I came up with it, and how it's helped my career so much. And I figured the podcast was the right place to do this. So when I started hairdressing, I was in a salon that was extremely toxic and very, very negative. And I had the reality facing me that faces a lot of women, probably men too, I'm not quite sure. But so as a woman growing up, there's a statistic that is pretty prevalent to a lot of us, and it's for every positive thought that you have about yourself, about 17 negative thoughts come along with it. So there's a lot of that massive imbalance growing up as a woman in the first place. And I've experienced a lot of that. But this hair salon that I worked at was like the reality of it. Like it was so wild. Nothing I did was right. And they would tell me that all the time, all day, every day. They'd say to me, like, did you get up? And they would swear at me and they would cuss me out. And anytime I did something wrong, they would say things to me like, you know, you've been out of hair school for 3 months now. You should just know how to be better and you should know how to be faster at this. And we're not going to tell you how to do that because you should just know. So that was something that wasn't helpful, and it wasn't constructive criticism. It was just criticism. And it was all day, every day that I heard negative things about me. And I knew for myself that if I kept going like this, that I was going to end up quitting this career that I felt like was my dream. And I was very excited for to begin with until I worked at this salon. So eventually I did quit. I worked there for only like 8 months and I did quit. And when I quit, it was extremely toxic. And I can go into that another day about my experience at this salon, but you guys will probably hear about my experience at this salon a few times throughout my podcast. But I learned a lot of things from there. Number one, that you're going to get negative feedback no matter where you are in your career, and you're always going to hear negative feedback. And negative feedback is not the same thing as a constructive critique. Another thing that I learned from there is that I do need to give myself positive critiques when I do something right, because hearing negative critiques all day long is not going to make you better. You need to have some positive reinforcement in there to praise yourself for doing something right, even if your appointment didn't go super well to begin with. Do you want out? Go. So I started something called 2 Stars and a Wish. And when I had left that first salon and I started working at a big chain salon, I was immediately welcomed with open arms by my new manager. And she had told me something that I will always remember on, I think it was like my 3rd or 4th shift. She saw the highlights that I did on my client. I'd only been 8 months out of hair school. And she was like, wow, the place that lost you really, really missed out here because you did a really, really good job with this. And I felt like crying. Now, this manager really saved my career for me, and I don't think that she understands how much the positive affirmations she gave me really, really repaired a lot of the damage that was done in the previous 8 months. But if Christine, you're ever listening to this, I wanted to thank you personally for helping to save my career and helping me get to where I am now, because your positive critiques and your empathetic view to me and seeing that I had been pretty broken down from my last place and doing your best to build me up with affirmations is really, really what got me to stick it out in hair during the hard days at the salon that I worked at. And, working together with you, I don't know how else to say, but thank you. So I hope you listen to this one day. So two stars and a wish is something where you have to have an imbalance of the positive to the critique. So you have to have, every single time you do an appointment, you have to have 2 stars. And even if you think you did perfect, you have to have 1 wish. And that won't be as common, especially when you're starting out as a hairdresser. But your 2 stars have to be something that that you can praise yourself for. So even if you didn't do hair that you love, or like let's just say like it has to be a fix later and the client has to come back and it's what you think in your mind was a failed appointment. It's only a failure if you can't learn something from it. That's my opinion. So if you have a failed appointment that has just left the chair, you can at least give yourself positive critiques on something. You can, for me, honestly, a couple times it's been, I didn't burst out into tears, even though I felt like it. So I handled my emotions okay. Number 2, I really think that I did a good job with what I was given, even though there are some errors in there and I need to fix them. Then the critique comes in. And the critique is not meant to be like, well, that color was ugly, or that was choppy, or you did this terribly. It's not meant to be an insult in any kind of way. It's meant to be something that you can work on to improve. So let's just say I had a client leave the chair who was not happy with their hair. And those were my first 2 stars that I gave myself. And then my wish could be, I wish that I had had a more thorough consultation with her, because we somehow got miscommunicated somewhere along the lines and I didn't end up giving her what she wanted. So that's a gentle way of telling yourself where things went out of the control or where they went wrong. And it's a good way to tell yourself how to fix it in the future. I also have a rule for 2 stars and a wish. So you have to say this out loud to yourself or out loud to someone. And if you're new at hairdressing, try to find a friend or maybe a manager who is working at the same salon as you, maybe someone who could have seen the appointment as well, or a mentor if you have one. That's obviously the best option. But if you have a mentor, going over your 2 stars and a wish with every single appointment is your fastest way to improve your skills. This is what I actually get all of my apprentices to do. And they hate it. They absolutely hate it. They hate critiquing themselves. They absolutely hate when I critique them. And the only thing they hate more than this is when they're shadowing me and I make them critique my work. They absolutely hate that one. They really hate it. They're like, no. I'm like, yes, you're going to tell me what I could have done better on. And they absolutely hate it. Having to do an in-person critique after your client leaves, don't critique in front of your client. That's super not okay. The client will be like, what? Something went wrong? Once your client leaves, you take them into the back room. You say, okay, give me your 2 stars and your wish. Let's just say it was a balayage client. And my apprentice says to me, I really like the toner that we used. And I think that my blending was really good. But I think that my haircut could have been better. Then I stop them and say, how could your haircut been better? How could you have done that better? And then if they don't have an answer, then I tell them the answer. And then my rule is, as their mentor, I have to give them different 2 stars and wishes, because we can double up on their skill building as we go with every single appointment. Then I say, well, I think typically, obviously, what happens with a lot of apprentices is they're a little harder on themselves than they need to be. And I would say, if the haircut was fine, I'd be like, your haircut was beautiful. I think that they could have used a little more face framing layering. Maybe that's the thing that could have gotten them a little closer to the inspo photo or gotten them more of that movement that you wanted to see in the front. Number 2, something that I really liked is your professionalism with this new client. They came in not knowing what they wanted, and you helped them land on the kind of style that they wanted, and you delivered that well. Something that I would like to see you work on with this client is I'd like to see you learn how to multitask your root shadow and your blonde toner at the same time. I think we're ready to move you into that step where you put on 2 different toners and blend together now. So 2 stars and a wish is a fantastic tool for career building, skill building, and self-critiquing, because if you get yourself used to hearing self-critiques, then it's not going to come so hard to you when, let's just say, a client doesn't like their hair, or when you do need to fix something and take accountability for messing up someone's hair maybe. Learning to take a critique is such an important skill in this kind of job, especially because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Everybody sees things differently. And if someone's not happy with their results and you are comfortable with taking some criticism, you're way, way, way more likely to keep that client and make them happy with their hair if you have an honest, open discussion about what's wrong and are willing to fix it for them. I think that that's my main reasons as to why I use 2 stars and a wish. And I really, really encourage you guys all to start using that for yourselves, whether you're a hairdresser or not, in whatever realm of skill you want to learn and get better at, utilize 2 stars in a wish, because it's going to give you a better memory of how things have gone wrong in the past down the road and how you fixed them. And it's also going to give you this natural skill at taking critique. You take it on the chin, you give it a smile, and you say, okay, but this is how I can fix it. And being number one, most important thing, giving yourself some positive affirmations, because everybody needs more positivity in their life, and making sure that you do minimum 2 positive affirmations. You can do 50, I don't care. You can, but you have to do minimum 2, because you do have 1 wish, and you're only allowed 1 wish per every appointment. You're not allowed to go, oh, I have 5 wishes because it sucked and I hated it and it was awful. Nope, you can do 1 wish, and you can do a whole bunch of positives now, because you're down on yourself about this appointment. I'm now going to add 3 stars here, because you need to see that there is something learnable from this appointment, but you also need to be kind to yourself. I guess that's my biggest thing. Be kind to yourself, because everyone else is going to be kind of mean to you. So that's the end of this episode of Hair's the Thing. I really hope that you guys, took something from this. And if you're following on YouTube, make sure to follow us also on Spotify at Hair's the Thing. And if you're on Spotify and you haven't found my YouTube, it's Bobby Hair Studio. And if you guys wanted to follow me on Instagram as well, I'm at vancity.blonde. And that's where you can find me. Thank you guys so much for listening along, and let me know what you think in the comments. Have you ever used 2 stars in a wish for yourself? Are you going to start using that for yourself? Let me know, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have a great day, guys.